Life. I hope that you're doing great. Today is Wednesday. I believe it's the 15th. And I really don't keep track of the date because I just go day to day, and sometimes I'll just say, is today Friday? Holidays really mess me up. But today is Wednesday evening, and I'm getting the kitchen all prepared to shut down for the night. And one of the things that I do is I clean down all the counters, I clean the stove, make sure there's nothing that's left to be done. Right now I've got some water boiling because I plan on making a cup of tea. But what I generally do when I'm all done with that is I prepare the coffee maker. Now we do have a Keurig coffee maker, and I've shared before how I make those replacement filters, because what I do is I buy a big bag of like 600 filters, the larger ones or whatever, and I just take a coaster and I make it like cut them down. Now, how do you use them? It's kind of like origami. So I just fit them into the little Keurig cups. But I've decided that we use so many of those, it can be annoying to have us making coffee after coffee after coffee. So I suggest to my husband, why don't we go out and get a Mr. Coffee or some sort of coffee maker? One moment. And the reason is, sorry, I realized I just bumped that coming back. The reason is so that he and I could just have one pot of coffee. And so I looked on the reviews online, and finally I decided on that I like the idea of a Mr. Coffee. Now, I'm not promoting Mr. Coffee. I'm not getting any revenue. None of that. It's just the coffee maker we selected. And so what I do at night is I'll get it prepared tonight, and I do not use a timer. So, because I don't believe in keeping things plugged in overnight. I don't like energy being taken from wherever and increasing our electric bill. And, I realize some people prefer that the coffee just turns on for them. I don't, for a number of reasons. Well, first, the frugality aspect. I'm not going to have the electricity running. But I'm also not getting up at 5 a.m. and running off to work like many other people might be. So this is what works best for us. So we don't need the timer per se. So what I do is at night, because I've already cleaned the coffee maker, everything's been draining and drying and stuff like that. So I get it ready. I have a filter that I bought, but because I don't like stainy stuff, and we still get it, I just take a coffee filter and put it into that area. Everybody does their own thing. I have a friend who just does not use coffee filters, and she liked the reusable one because it saves her from having to use a coffee filter. I don't mind, because you know what? I use organic ones and I throw them into the compost. I'm not having it doesn't bother me at all. So what we've decided, because when I was all all messed up during the world collapse, I found something that worked for us. But that I would have this. It's New England coffee, and they have a brand. It's chocolate cappuccino. I really love this coffee. And again, I'm not making money by promoting them at all. That's not what my intent is. My husband likes a butter pecan. And now this is one thing I can't make. I don't have coffee beans in my backyard, so I have to purchase what we need. And I'm okay with these things. So he's got a butter pecan, and he prefers a French vanilla. But what I have done is I've watched him, how he makes his coffee. He changes it up all the time. So when he was doing his Keurig, I just said, okay, why are you doing all this? So one night, and this was a few months back, after we got the coffee maker, I decided to make a coffee that might work for both of us. So what I do is, I've got this little doohickey ready to go. Let me put this in here. Okay. What I do is, the first thing I put in here is a little bit of butter pecan. When it's on sale, when these coffees are on sale, I don't buy much of the butter pecan, but I kind of like that little hint of butter pecan in here. So I put 1 scoop in of that. And now for the 12 cup serving that this makes, I don't put the amount of coffee that somebody else might like, because I don't like really strong coffee, but I still think it's a lot, but it works. I put in some, like 3 tablespoons. Is that tablespoons? I don't know, it's a teaspoon. I put in 3 scoops of the chocolate one that I like. And then my husband likes this vanilla. So I will put in a few scoops of that. Let's see if I can read the measuring on this. It's just a coffee scoop. So I'll put 3 of his in here. And that's pretty much it, except. And he truly is okay with it, because he hasn't complained yet. And after he sees this, he'll know what I'm up to. Let me put these things out of my way. I have 2 macas, M-A-C-A. This is one of them that I use. And I put a couple of teaspoons of this into this mix as well. And maca is really good. It has a variety of benefits into it, and one of them is helping with energy and stuff. So I just added to the coffee. I mean, come on, folks. And the one thing, I just put a couple of scoops in this, and I mix it up so he doesn't see it. He really doesn't care. So this is what it looks like right now, and I just kind of like blend it all together. Now, I realize that most people just take their typical coffee that they choose, and that's what they use. Now, can I use the other coffees? I absolutely can. Like, I have had Maxwell House, Folgers, I've had all of those. But these are the ones we like because we like the type of flavor that it has. So these things get put back, and I try to have that all out of the way. And then I just take this. All of you who know how to make coffee, there it is. And I get that set. And then the next thing I do is I pour water in it. This is why it's all ready. Hold on. We have a Berkey water filter. And so what we do is we pour the water in here. But I cannot possibly take my coffee maker and bring it over to the Berkey because it's over there. And like, I'm not going to do that. But we found that this bottle here, you know, we try to keep it clean. Once it goes icky, if it does, we stop using it. But then I just pour this in up to the 12-cup mark. And I end up with a little bit more, but I put this in a container that has water that I drink, that I pour my glass of water out of, if it has plenty. So I get that all set. Make sure all the pieces are back together on the coffee kettle. And it still has a little moisture from the being washed. But since I know that we're going to be using that, that's what we have. So I have it. It's all set. I don't know if you can see it. Whoops. Sorry about that. It's all set. And so I just put a cover over it because, to me, it's all tidy now. And I realize that, here, I'm going to turn that just a little bit. I realize that some people think, well, that's going too far. You really don't need to do that. You're right, I don't. But this works for me because I get up, I take the cover off, I push the button, get my water that I plan on having for the morning, and then I start it. And then a little while later, the coffee's ready. And it keeps it warm for 2 hours. So this works for my husband and I because I wait until about the time that he's waking up, because I'm up like 2 hours before he's up. So I don't even start this until, like I said, about a half an hour before he's getting up, unless he tells me, hey, Laura, I got to sleep an extra hour, or if I notice that he seems really tired, I wait. Now, it makes 12 cups, actually 10 cups by the time it gets through the coffee. And what we do with that is it gets used up generally, except on the weekends. And so we put it into a bottle. I don't have one, a glass bottle. I don't have it here, but that we put it in there so he has some cold coffee. Usually on the weekend, we will probably do the Keurig because we make it as we go type of thing. But this, he takes the coffee and he puts it in coffee mugs that he takes to work. And that's why we use the big one. Otherwise, he would just have 1 cup in the morning. So that's what I do to start my evening, to start settling down. The next thing I'll do is I'll prepare a cup of tea. Now today I'm trying a new tea, even though I can make my own tea. Where'd I put it? I knew it was here. There it is. I like this brand if I am not making my own herbal blends. If I'm not needing an herbal blend for some personal health reasons, what I do is I like the Buddha brand, and again, I'm not promoting them. I have thought about it, but I haven't yet done it. So this came in today, and I just thought, I'm just going to try it. This one is elderberry tea, and I just thought, with the cold flu season, who can go wrong with elderberry tea? I make an elderberry syrup. I actually have elderberries that I can make into a tea that I do once in a while. So today, this is what I'm going to use. Let's see, what teacup do I want? Get this started, and then I wanted to talk to you about something that has been kind of on my mind for a few days. And it has to do with being at home, being a housewife, and how satisfying is that, and why is it of interest to me. So once I get this going, I'm going to change the camera a little bit so I can sit down and talk with you. And here I am. So I wanted to share with you, I'm drinking my elderberry tea now, and I think I shared this. This is the elderberry tea that I'm using. This is Buddha Teas. You can get it online. Their company, they have sales all the time. You can buy them. It's cheaper to buy like 3 boxes at a time, but I bought this with a couple of others, and so I'm trying this one. Now I make my own elderberry syrup. I have elderberries that I've purchased. My elderberry trees did really good the last 2 years, but not enough to bring in berries. So I'm hoping that this summer, I have 6 of them, and I think 5 of them were doing okay. So this year I'm hoping to be able to get the flowers and the berries and make my own elderberry tea that is strictly from my home, the garden. So that was a tangent. So what I wanted to talk to you about is being a housewife. I was not always an at-home 100% of the time housewife. I became the housewife after many years. I worked 2 jobs going to college when the kids were young. I did all kinds of stuff. I started up my business while I was working, and I started that so that I could be home with my kids. And I didn't expect that going from woodworking, furniture making, to accounting, to just sewing on my break would turn into a career. So what it did, though, it allowed me to create a business, and I've shared the name. It's Davina Sewing. It's still on the books as being alive, so I'm trying to do some of that. But I don't have the website. I have to recreate it. But what I was doing was very biblical without me even thinking about it. And somebody said, you're kind of like Proverbs 31 woman, and this is when we were going to church. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because it's like I didn't feel like I was that woman. I don't think any woman feels that way. I think we are so stressed we don't feel like we're worthy to be called something that is so beautiful. And in reality we are. But it takes energy on our end. We have to understand that we are all giving gifts. So how does this relate to being at home? Well, I've not gone back out to work. I have wanted to, and I wanted to get back into healthcare, yet with what happened, and I still love what healthcare can do for people, but I'm really questioning the quality of care that we're getting. And it's a big controversial thing. I don't like to go into that because I think medicine has its place. my doctors who have not gone crazy are the ones who have supported me on the different things that I contend with. And so I do not believe in bashing the healthcare system. I can be disappointed in some areas, but I learned a lot. I loved being a nursing assistant. I loved it. It was a passion. I get up in the morning and I loved going to work every single day. And I loved learning about the stuff in the surgery in the OR where I became a surgical tech. And those things were fulfilling. But when I left accounting and I started my own sewing business at home, the reason I decided that this was where I needed to be, because I tried a job so that I could be close to home, is because I decided to take my kids out of school. Because I noticed that job that I ended up leaving was I was always there, and then always working extra hours, and I'd come home, I'd work till 2 a.m. doing accounting analysis and reports for the and finally I just said, this is ridiculous, and I was tired, because at that point, before I left, I had my third daughter who I was nursing and taking care of and doing that kind of stuff, and I just kind of I got tired. And I was kind of questioning, should I be here? And what happened was, this was the answer. They asked me, actually they insisted that I work on Mother's Day. And it was the first time I told my boss, no way. And he goes, well, you have to. And that's when I started learning to say, I don't have to do anything. Now, I'm still a giver. I still like doing things for people, and I was strongly wanting to please people. And I said, no, my family comes first. The reason they're home and I'm homeschooling, and what I was doing is I was homeschooling as well. I would come home at night and I would give them their courses. It worked, but it was a lot of work on my end. So I ended up quitting and started my sewing business. And it worked great because my kids were no longer in the public school, and my youngest was she was just the baby, so we were taking care of her. But I was able to do my sewing business, which started out basically making doll clothing and baby blankets and all that stuff. And I still make baby blankets, and I give them as gifts and I sell them. So what happened was, as I'm transitioning into this mom, this housewife, this homemaker, it now became a full-time job. And even though I was running a sewing business, that ended up being so much. But when our middle daughter decided because she never had done public school, the other two had gone through 4th grade. And she asked, Mom, I'd really like to try public school. I said, okay. And she gave me her reasonings, and I have an open mind. It's like, okay, but if you decide you don't want to, please let me know. So she did, and she liked it. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to go and get my license to be a nursing assistant. It was awesome, and I loved it. And so it was a great decision. But you know what? It just taught me more about who I was, the caregiver that I was nourishing up to this point of who I became, and I loved it. So things happened. I ended up having to shut my sewing business down and stop working at the hospitals, and because I was working at 2, and I had to stay home because of Lyme disease. But I never gave up on being a housewife, and I love it to this day. So much I have learned. My kids are out of the house. You never stop being a homemaker. What I love about this transition of who I am today is that it is biblical, and it comes from the virtuous wife, and that's in Proverbs 31, and it starts at verse 10, and I'm going to read it, so please be patient. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. So ladies, if you are a housewife and you feel defeated, you're worth more than anything. Your price is worth more than rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust her, so that he shall have no need to spoil. Now, that's really important because not all marriages are strong. And I'm going to be transparent. My husband and I don't always agree, and sometimes it's not really pretty. But we always come together at the end. We never go to bed angry. We actually have conversations and we kind of try to resolve the situation, but we never go to bed angry. And if there's something that we still need to work on, we put it on the back burner and come to it and say, okay, this is what I thought about, because it gives us time to think about it. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life, meaning she will honor her husband. And I don't see a lot of this in our world today, but when I got married, I took my vows very seriously. We could definitely have gotten a divorce a billion times over, but that's the easy route out. And I don't want that. I want us to actually flourish, and we're coming up on 44 years this year. And I'm like, wow. I'm looking forward to 50. Maybe nobody will show, but I'm having a party, even if it's just with him. She seeketh wool and flax and worketh willingly with her hands. And this is what they were talking about when they told me I was like the Proverbs 31 woman, is because I do a lot of sewing. I use different fabrics to create and make curtains for the house. I make sure my husband's clothes are mended. I make clothes for myself. I make clothes for the girls. I did all that stuff. But I thought, I love that. And not all women like to sew. Not all women. But you know what? You might not like to do that. And if you're out working and you want to purchase those things, I don't think this is saying you have to sew. Okay? I think this is just taking care of your family. And it goes on, she is like the merchant's ships. She bringeth her food from afar, meaning that she goes out and she gets quality food. It means that she's frugal with her money. She's very conscientious about how she feeds her family, her husband, and how she preserves it. And this is where it's like, here we are trying to grow food so I don't have to depend on anybody else. I didn't do a lot of gardening when I was working. And when the kids were little and homeschooling and stuff, I didn't do a lot of gardening. I was mostly just starting with the flowers. I have one daughter who loves to garden with flowers and stuff, and she helped me get those things established. She didn't know she was helping. She was doing it for her own pleasure because she loves flowers. And so we gave her spots in the yard that she could have her flower gardens, and I have transitioned them since she's gone, adding herbs and vegetables into them. So she is like the merchant's ship. She bringeth her food from afar. So I might go to the butcher's. I might go to the show. We're trying to go to the coast this year so we can pick up seafood. Even going to the grocery store, buying quality food is very important. And so she riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household and a portion to her maidens. So a housewife is deemed as somebody who loves and honors her family, her husband first, her children, and anybody that is working for her. Now, in this day and age, we don't have servants, but when we go and we have our card maintained, we pay the mechanic. When we go and we hire somebody to do something, we make sure we pay them. Even when I go and get my fabric, I make sure I get quality fabric. And I'm a fabric snob. I will admit that. And the reason is that quality fabric lasts longer. I don't like throwing things away. So she considereth a field and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands she planted a vineyard. Now, I personally did not buy this property. We bought it together. I just realized my head is being cut off. Yeah, hold on. And but still, I try to make sure everything is going. Now, I can't do everything in the yard, so I have to incorporate my husband. But these are things that the Proverbs woman does. She considers the field and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hand, she planted a vineyard. And as we're looking to move, which we hope we get to, that's something that I'm doing, is I'm trying to figure out what to do. And then she girdeth her loins with strength and strengthened her arms. And I'll tell you, when I got Lyme disease, I got so weak. And I'm now working on rebuild. I've been working on it little by little, and then the osteoporosis, I have to be so extra careful. And today when I was bringing in my order, I actually tripped and almost in my brain, I'm thinking, no, I can't break anything. I can't do that. And so now my osteoporosis isn't to the point where they would insist on something, but so that's why I'm trying really hard to make sure that I can build my bone mass back up and stuff. Can it be reversed? I have a friend who reversed it, so I thought I would have reversed it by now, but no, it got worse. So I'm still determined I'm going to make it better. So I was like, oh no, I can't do that. I have to be careful. And so that's something that, like, if I can't get locally what I need at a price that I can afford, I order and I bring it in. So, so she girdeth her loins with strength and strengthens her arms. And when I'm out in the garden, I don't want my husband helping me. I don't want him to feel like he has to, but I do ask him for things that I cannot physically do. And his job is to do some other things. Now, she perceiveth that her merchants is good, her candle goeth not out by night. And this goes back to when I was sewing all the time. I would be up at all hours, either mending, making, sewing, doing whatever for the family, and some things for myself. And you do it until it gets done. And it's sort of like the job that I had where I worked till 2 a.m. until I said, okay, that's enough. That's not happening. My family's number one. So she perceived that her merchants is good, and the candle does not go out at night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. I do not have a spindle. I would like one, but I don't have that. But I do work with a sewing machine. She stretches out her hand to the poor. Yea, she reaches forth her hands to the needy. And I will not tell you all the things I do because I don't think that is godly at all. But I do enjoy giving to others. And when I see somebody in need, I try to think about what would help them. And if I can do that, I will. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. Meaning that as the cold temps come in, even in the heat, we are clothed appropriately, and we make sure that everybody is dressed accordingly. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry, her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. He doesn't sit with elders, he works with other men. She maketh fine linen, and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchant. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. So that does not mean that she has to be wearing the richest of everything. She just goes out and tries to buy quality. Now, I've always been that way, and I learned that from my granny who lived in Missouri. And she taught me about quality material and stuff. And she gave me tips on sewing. I learned most of my sewing in high school. I started sewing when I was in elementary school, and I was learning from my mother and my grandmother. And mostly I got the tips from my grandmother, and I just started learning how to sew. So I've been sewing for years. But that does not mean that I am wealthy. What the scripture is saying is that you find quality and you make the best of what you have. Now, I repurpose things too. So some people might think that's cheap. It's not, it's frugal. And if a fabric still has enough life in it, if like my husband's jeans, I cut off the parts. Like if most people know at the back of your jeans, it never wears out because typically it wears out on the knees and the front. And so you can take that and create from there. Let's see. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness, meaning she's always busy. I sometimes wonder why I'm like that. And it's like, and when I was really, really sick and couldn't do anything, I felt so useless. But sometimes God calls us to sit back and relax and heal. Her children ariseth up and call her blessed. Her husband is also, and he praiseth her. And my husband does. He does say really nice things. My kids have asked me to make things for some of their friends and stuff like that. So I know that people love what I do. Many daughters have done virtuously. but thou excellest them all. Meaning that when we want to serve God, it doesn't mean I am better than anybody else. It just means when you are putting God first in your priorities, God will honor you. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain. But a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. So God is asking women to be humble. It doesn't mean that and I have a hard time saying, look at me. And I do this because when I share things, it's because as I rebuild my sewing business, people need to see the quality of work that I do. And do I judge how other people sew? Not really. Because it's like how I like my house to be. That doesn't mean I think everybody's house should be that way. I think people need to live in their home according to what's comfortable for them. And so for me, I like a tidy house. Now, not every corner of my house is spotless. And one of the humbling things of owning a chicken, and we don't have a mudroom, is that when I take my boots off, I now have a boot scraper as I enter. And I have a tray. It's trays we threw out when I worked as a surgical tech. I took a bunch of those, and I use them for different things. I use them for crafting, but I also use them for our boots because they have an edge so that the water doesn't get all over my floors. And it's like, still, it's the hay, it's that kind of stuff that comes in because I scrape off all the other stuff. But so it drives me nuts. So my house is not perfect. It's just one of those things that I like to make sure the house is tidy before I go to bed. And what it does is it allows my mind to rest, because then I realize that everything I did is done and I'm all set to rest. So the things that I do are where I'm led, and I think God gives each of us desires and interests. And I love that God brought me through the Lyme disease. I hated it. I didn't hate God, but I did cry out to him, and many times it's like, why? And I have another issue that is like, why? And I don't always laugh, but I have to realize that in life we are given opportunities to learn. And if I can't heal my body the way that I wish it would heal, and if my doctor can't do it either, then I have to be humble enough to accept that God is asking me to share my journey and to give encouragement to other women or other people that are trying to heal from whatever disease that they might be enduring. So I look at this scripture today and I think, God has really blessed me. He really has. He has given me a passion to do more for our health, and that's incorporating herbs. And that's why I'm doing studies in herbology. I am trying to make ourselves better. And why is that? We have this health system, and it's huge, but it is broken. I think I've shared it before. It's a broken system that brings you back time and time again. I had a primary doc who, he just kept having me go for testing. This was a time when Dave and I were really strapped and I couldn't do it. So I ended up getting financial aid from the hospital, and they paid for everything that the insurance didn't cover. And so that was a big help, because I knew this doctor was wrong, but because I already did all the Lyme tests and he was kind of repeating them. And then as he was doing this, and I ended up seeing a liver specialist. Yeah, it was a liver specialist. And because my doctor said, you got this. And I had to do an MRI twice. And I was mad because he didn't put the order in correctly. So I had to go back and get that. And so I went in to talk to the liver specialist. And she said to me, why is he doing this to you? I said, I don't know. This is what I expected for an answer that it was. But I said, I needed to come in here to talk to you to make sure it wasn't me saying, I know better. And a lot of us, if you stop to think about it, with no arrogance, we can sometimes know what's going on with our body. We may not understand it, but we know that some things, no, that's not what's really going on. With Lyme disease, we can have symptoms, but a doctor can go and do a test and it comes back negative all the time. And one of the things is I can have chronic UTIs. This is not something I'm proud about, but with Lyme disease, you can have the symptoms of a UTI. But if you go for a culture, it won't show up. So I just learned over the years, I get the region strips, so I know for sure something's going on. And I wait as long as I can, because if I can heal it with an herb, that's what I do. And sometimes it's not working. So you need to use the pharmacy, you need to use a medication to kind of kick it. So now I didn't share that with Pride, but I was listening to somebody else that as we get older, one of the things that is women tend to have more urinary tract infections, but you know what? Men do too. But we need to keep our bodies healthy. So, like my husband's asthma, my stuff going on. We need to work with our doctors, but we need to be aware of the medicine that they keep giving us. And if it doesn't improve, what can we do to make it better? And that is why I believe in a very holistic lifestyle. And I think this is important. Sometimes, that's why I'm trying to do as much food that doesn't come from the grocery store. And I'm having a hard time with the produce. I now buy the organic, and I use it right away. I try not to buy any vegetables that's wrapped in plastic. And the reason is sometimes it looks great, but you open it up and it's rotten inside. And I'm like, I am tired of wasting my money. So I'm looking forward to how our garden does this year. Will I get an abundance? I don't know, but if I get too much, I can do two things. Proverbs 31. I can sell and I can gift those in need. So there's things that we can do. Now, I really enjoy being a housewife. I enjoy being home for my husband's needs. Now, he sometimes expects me to do a lot. And one time, a long time ago, he was home with me. Oops, sorry about that. He was home with me. And the phone rings. It's all day long. And he goes, "You never stop." I said, "No, there's always something to do, even if it's just one project." And there's always something to be done. Now, I am not disrespecting women who work. I actually want to go back to work part-time. But I haven't found the job that works with what I need for a situation with my health. And so until I find that, and especially with my back, I have spinal issues. I can't even work in a grocery store because they all have cement type floors. My back, when I go, like say I go to Lowe's, and if we're walking around, I am in so much agony afterwards. So I have to be very careful of where I work and that I can at least move and stuff like that. So if it's meant to be, it'll happen. If not, that's okay because I can keep myself busy here. But just because you might be a woman who is out working, do not be upset about that. God has called you there for a reason. Maybe you chose it, but if God is calling you to stay home, then you will figure it out. You might be poor for a while. When I stayed home because I wanted to homeschool my kids, because just a lot of factors that were going on, it was really hard. It was the most humbling time. I've gone through a number of them. But you know what? I was most happy taking care of my family. I was most happy taking care of our home. I love making a new set of curtains for any room that I might be making them for. I take great joy in that. I enjoy when I'm hired to make stuff with my skills. And, it's just these things are important. And I realize there's a lot of controversy, but like when the pandemic hit, one of the things I did was I didn't care what anybody thought. I just felt led to help make masks. Now, do I like wearing them? No, but I like the ones I make. I think there's just so much controversy that everybody is up in arms, both sides. So, and now with the virus season here, there's more of it back. So I think we need to be respectful, and I never make fun of people that are wearing the mask. But you know what I do? I kind of like keep my distance because it's a sign of respect for them. So you might be out there working and you have to wear a mask and you resent it. Then I think you need to figure out how you can do your job and work with your supervisor to figure out what will work for you. And there is some careers out there that you're not getting out of it, especially the healthcare field. But there's other areas that it's not an issue. Now, what are the rewards of being at home, especially at this age? I'm 63, I'm retired, officially, and my husband works full time. What is the reward for me? Well, no kids, so it's an empty nest, and that's actually kind of freeing. I have grandkids, I think of them often. Nobody lives close enough by anymore. And so it gives my husband and I a new opportunity to date again. And it's awesome. And it's not romantic with roses and everything. It should be. I think it should be. No, I really am not big on, I like getting flowers, but I don't like to be too much because it's just kind of like, it's kind of too much. Like, I can't wait till the gardens start because all those flowers will be out there. But the benefits of being home, being a housewife at my age, is that I get to do more. I get to be more meticulous with the cooking. There is no hurry. And that is a gift for working these years. Whether you're a housewife, and you're home, you're taking care of your family and stuff, even as they start departing, you get this part in your life where eventually you get to relax and enjoy this time. This is a gift. This is what we are blessed with at the end. Now, my husband comes home. I pray for his safety on the roads, especially during the winter season. And, we get time together to sit down and talk. We didn't get to do that as much when the kids were little because the kids were always there. And, and at night we would be so exhausted, we'd crash. So I find that this stage of my life, and I think David agrees with me, but I think this is a stage of my life I've gone through my childhood. Started my adult life. I got married, had children, worked jobs, multiple jobs, schooling while I was there and still doing stuff. And that's not complaining. I'm just saying all these things gave me one step forward to where God wanted me to be. To run my business, if I didn't have that accounting background, I would not have been able to be as successful as I was. I knew exactly where every dollar was coming from, and I knew how to price my things. Now, today people, sometimes think my prices are too high, but in reality they're not, because I know how to do cost accounting. That was my specialty. And I know how to do my financials, and the last thing I want to do is have a negative. I do not want to run a business where I lose money. I also, because of my faith, I do not believe in debt. So when I needed a new sewing machine, I would save for it. I'd put the money aside and I would save for it. One time I was at a meeting where somebody said to me, because they were trying to get me hooked up and doing this thing and it would cost so much per month. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And she goes, Laura, it'll help build your business. I said, no. I said, God will build my business. And I said, I don't have that kind of money. And she goes, well, she goes, you could call your husband. I'm thinking, I do the accounting at home. My husband has no idea. So when I got home, I said, David, what do you think? He goes, what do you think? I said, I'm not doing it. See, I am not convinced that one of the things, even us as women, whether we work or not, we need to be smart about where our money comes and goes from. And if you're not good at that, maybe your partner is. And then you work together and you respect each other. You don't go willy-nilly and spending all your money, but you respect each other and get what you need. So I want to close this in saying that I am really grateful that God has brought me through my journey, even the toughest times. And that doesn't mean everything's over. It's not over until He takes me home. I'm here, I'm waiting. I'm not saying I want to die. I'm just saying I've gotten to a very comfortable place in my life. that I am now just serving him through what I do. And, there's some things that I've had to heal from, and I might do this in a different video. Emotional healing. And I have opened my eyes to see what God was asking me. And it is okay for me to voice my opinion, and I'm a very direct person. Someone told me I was very frank. It was from a guy, and he goes, and I love that about you. And then Dave and I were talking, because one of the things that many women do not like about me is I just say it. And people who make things up, don't know what they're talking about. I have to hold my tongue, because otherwise I just say it. And I'm getting better. My cousin, David's cousin, said to me once, she goes, Laura, you just don't have a filter. And I'm like, because I'm thinking, what's wrong? She goes, you don't have a filter. And so I took that as something like, I wasn't insulted. I was just like, what do you mean I don't have a filter? And what it is I speak the truth of what I see. But that does not mean I'm not willing to hear. And that's where marriage, even if you're living together with somebody, where a relationship is important, where you both hear one another. You can have arguments. Well, maybe God doesn't like it, but we do have arguments because we're human. And part of the arguments is because there is something that happens where we don't understand, or men think differently than women. Let's put it out there. And so I might ask for something. My husband hears it differently, and I get frustrated. He's like, that's not what I asked for. But the coolest thing about a relationship that you want to work is that you take the time to talk about it. And that doesn't mean you'll always agree. I'll tell you, we don't always. I've done the compromises, and he's done compromises. And sometimes I'm like, do it your way, and I walk away. And then later I tell him, this is why it bothered me. But if I get to it earlier, we can get it fixed sooner. I find that if I get upset and I don't walk away, I might not be treating him well as my husband. And sometimes I kind of lose it. But that's transparency, folks. I am not going to sit here and say I am the perfect wife, because I am not. And he's not the perfect husband either. But when we're together, we make the perfect relationship for us. So I love being a housewife. I love being a homemaker. I love the journey that I'm on in trying to grow things. My husband's not home to do the gardens. He can help me set things up. I am honored to be his wife. I'm fortunate that he has skills. We both have skills that complement each other. And some people, they barter out. My husband and I barter. Not really. If his clothes need to be mended, I do it. But when I ask him to do something, it's like, oh, could you do that? I don't do the bartering thing, like, hey, I did this, will you do that? Because that's kind of like not right. But it's like with my massage therapist, she and I barter services, because when she needs something sewn, it works for both of us. And so that's where I'm coming from. There's a lot on my journey, but for some reason I wanted to come on and talk about being a housewife. There's a lot of responsibilities I have, and that is making sure we have healthy food, making sure our pantry is stocked with healthy things, so if there's a snowstorm that keeps us home. And I'm not worried about those, because we live in an area that it's, they clean the roads up pretty quickly. But there's areas in New Hampshire that they don't. And we now, for many years we didn't, we now have a grocery store right down the road. So I don't worry about that too much, but also when there's a storm, I don't go running out, because I've planned so we have food on hand for those emergencies. And that is what a biblical woman does. And for those who feel like they're not honoring God by working, yeah, you are. You might not be home like I am, but you are doing something to provide food and clothing and shelter for you and your husband, and or you and your children. So don't ever feel like you are less than, because you're not. You might be going through some hard times right now, and I know a few people who are, but there's only so much. Sometimes our journeys are what make us stronger. And so that's pretty much what I wanted to share. I end my night by cleaning up, getting the coffee maker ready, grab a cup of tea, and then I meditate, or I kind of like figure out what I'm doing. And then, and sometimes I'll just sit back and watch a movie. And I've been trying to find more comical, more uplifting movies. And one of the things I've done for my health is I no longer listen to negativity. And sometimes on YouTube, people will be ranting. I can't do that anymore, because it gets me all wired, and then I can't be the wife I desire to be for my husband. So I hope this was inspirational, folks, and I hope you realize that whatever you're doing, to be a godly woman is to honor God, but also honor who you are. You are valuable. Folks, I hope that you are blessed, and I hope you have a restful evening. God bless, friends.